is Miss Deja, and I work at the Mono Arts Council. I'm the one who puts together those awesome art supplies for you, and I also teach Create with the Grades. I'm so excited to be back with you today to teach our next lesson, and we will be talking about the Japanese artist Hokusai, and we'll be learning about the Asian brushstroke technique. I do hope you're enjoying those art supplies. I hope you're enjoying our art classes, and please make sure to take care of the supplies because we will be reusing them again throughout the school year. But first, let's go over the art supplies that we'll need today, and then I will let you know what this class will be about. So first, we're going to need the green paintbrush that I provided for you in the art supplies. You'll also need black tempera paint that should be in that plastic container. You will need the sheet of white construction paper. We're going to be using it landscape, not portrait. So we're doing landscape. Okay, so make sure to put that straight down on your table. That will be hot dog and not hamburger. So we're doing landscape today. So put that over to the side. We'll also need a sheet of scrap paper to practice on. So that could be lined paper, you can use newspaper, a paper towel, some cardboard, any piece of paper you don't mind practicing on, so we can practice learning the Asian brushstroke technique. We will also need a little bit of water at the very end of the lesson, just a few drops of water, not too much, but at the very end of the lesson. So make sure you have paintbrush, black tempera, the big white sheet of construction paper, and you'll also need a sheet of scrap paper to practice on. You can also use a practice worksheet. If you have that, you can also use paper towels, newspaper, cardboard, anything you don't mind practicing your painting on. And if you do not have the supplies for some reason, you can use a pencil. You can also use a black colored pencil, a black crayon, or a black marker, and any white sheet of paper to practice this lesson on. And as well, you will still need a piece of scrap paper. So what are we going to be learning about today? Well, today we'll be learning about the artist Hokusai, who was from Japan, and he's born in the 1700s, so almost 300 years ago. And we'll be learning about the Asian brushstroke technique. I will show you how to create the different brush strokes and how to hold your paintbrush in special ways to create the part of our paintings that we're going to need. So you're learning how to make these lines. There's also a special technique to hold your paintbrush to create the leaves, because we'll be creating a painting. Get to know Hokusai a little bit better, I will go over the art supplies before we start the lesson and at the end of the slideshow. But I'll first show you a slideshow of some pictures of Hokusai, some of his artwork, and also some examples of the Asian brushstroke technique. So let's take a look at that. Hokusai is a Japanese artist from Japan. He was born in 1760. This is actually a self-portrait of Hokusai. And self-portraits, if you remember from our Frida Kahlo lesson, are when artists paint themselves or draw themselves. And this is a painting of Hokusai that he painted of himself when he was much older. Hokusai went by 30 different names, but his favorite one was Hokusai. That was the one he used most often. And Hokusai in Japanese means northern star. I don't know about you, but I only have a few nicknames that I go by. And if I had 30, that would be a lot to keep track of. And he moved over 100 times in his life. So that is a lot of packing and unpacking and telling one of your many nicknames that you have. This is Hokusai. Hokusai was about your age when he first learned to paint. He was about 6 years old when he received his first paintbrush, and he started to paint on everything he could find. He would paint on rocks, he would paint on wood, he would paint on any paper he could find. He loved to paint, but he would practice painting the most to learn the Asian brushstroke technique was bamboo. So if you're not that well of a painter, or if you don't have much experience painting, we will practice just like Hokusai did by painting bamboo. And I will teach you the Asian brushstroke technique. So have no fear, you're going to do a great job. Um, Now, Hokusai would start to make his own paintbrushes out of mouse whiskers, and he would use bamboo for the handle. So you might be able to get creative and use a cat or dog hair and some sticks that you find outside to create your own paintbrushes. And if you do, please let me know how that comes out. All right. So this is a picture of a teacher teaching students the Asian brushstroke technique. They're actually writing calligraphy. So you might recognize these symbols. People in Asian culture use calligraphy to write their alphabet. Now, in the Asian alphabet, they have over 40,000 symbols to learn. And for example, if you wanted to read a newspaper, you would need to learn 8,000 symbols just to read the newspaper. That is a lot to memorize. Luckily, we only have to learn 26 symbols for the capital letters in our alphabet. So that is quite a bit. This is Hokusai's most famous piece of work. This is the Great Wave at Kanegawa. And Hokusai loved to paint the nature that he saw all around Japan, the oceans, the rivers, and the mountains. But his favorite thing to paint was Mount Fuji, and that is what you see right in the back there. I do have a question for you. You can think about it for a moment. Do you think that this is a painting, or do you think that this is a drawing? So I'll give you a moment to think about that. Well, for those of you who think that this is a drawing, you are correct. This is a drawing. So if for some reason you do not have the art supplies today and you're going to be using a pencil or a marker or a crayon, your pictures can come out just as good as any painting. I'm sure you'll do a great job. This is 36 Views of Mount Fuji. This was actually the cover of Hokusai's book where he collected all of his artwork. So this is the collection of Hokusai's artwork. This is the cover of that collection. As I mentioned, he loved to paint the nature all around Japan, the hills, the trees, clouds, the mountains, and most importantly, Mount Fuji. You might notice that white space over on the left part of this picture. That is known as negative space to artists. So when we're creating our paintings of bamboo, don't worry about covering up the whole paper. That's okay if you leave a little bit of that white or negative space. That's okay in art. Don't worry about filling up the whole paper. This is a picture of a painting of bamboo and rocks, kind of like what we're going to be creating today. And there's a special technique of how you hold your paintbrush to create each part of the bamboo. I'm going to teach you that today. You might not notice that rocks are on the left part of this painting. There's also some calligraphy on the right. But pay attention to the bamboo. Bamboo is so special. It could be used in so many different ways. For those of you who ski or snowboard, you might notice that your skis, your ski poles, or your snowboard are sometimes made out of bamboo. Bamboo is very strong, but also can bend and is very flexible without breaking. So bamboo, when there is no wind, can stand up very tall and straight. But as soon as there's some wind, it will bend and flex in the wind without breaking. The leaves are also very graceful. And so I'm going to show you special techniques to express this characteristics of the bamboo. This is a close-up of the painting, and notice that there's each individual parts of the bamboo. So the stalk, the branches, and the leaves. So keep that in mind when we are painting our own painting today, that we want to express each part of the bamboo, each part of the stalk, each branch, and each leaf. And there's a special technique that we're going to show. We're going to learn to show this. This is an artist, and each picture shows you the steps of painting bamboo. We're going to start with the stalk. We're going to next paint the branches. We're going to end with the leaves. And lastly, we're going to color in the bamboo. This is a picture of bamboo and rocks once again. Bamboo is very useful and special in Asian culture. They use it to build houses, they use it to make furniture, and they also use it to eat. So if any of you have had ramen before, I love having ramen on a cold, snowy day in Mammoth. You can sometimes choose to have bamboo shoots put in your soup. So bamboo can be used in so many different ways to build and also to eat. This is a picture of different paintbrushes that artists use. Um, Paintbrushes are typically made out of animal hair, such as wolf hair, and the handles are made out of bamboo. Unfortunately, our paintbrushes aren't that exciting. They're only made out of plastic and synthetic bristles. But I just wanted to show you an example of all the different kinds of paintbrushes that artists will use. And there's also some stamps at the bottom of the hanging brushes as well. So unfortunately, we won't be using stamps today, but I just wanted to show you the variety of art supplies that artists use. All right. Hokusai was painting up until his very last breath. He was 89 years old when he passed away. And on his tombstone, it says, "Old man crazy about art." So let's take another look at the Asian brushstroke technique and create our own paintings of bamboo inspired by Hokusai's artwork.
So let's go over the supplies one more time. You're going to need that green paintbrush that was in your art supplies. You're also going to need the black tempera paint, and make sure you have that big white sheet of construction paper. We're going to put that over to the side, and we'll be using our piece of scrap paper to start with. So you can use a paper towel, newspaper, cardboard, any sheet of scrap paper, or that worksheet if you have the pre-lesson worksheet to practice on. We're going to practice the Asian brushstroke technique, and all we're using is paint and our paintbrush with the scrap paper to start with. We will be using water, but at the very end of the lesson, so no water right now. If you have that little plastic covering on your paintbrush, you can take that off now. You can take the lid off of your paint as well. Okay, so let's start by making these lines. And we're going to use those lines for the stalk, and we're also going to use them for the branches. Make sure you're holding your paintbrush right at the bottom of the handle. So just before you touch the bristles, right at the bottom of the handle. All right, so we can have good control over the paintbrush. We're gonna hold it like a pen or a pencil. If you're left-handed, it might look like this. So a pen or a pencil. We're gonna hold it just like that at the very bottom of the handle, the bottom of that gold part, just before we touch the bristles. Okay, so go ahead and watch me first, and I'll let you know when to start. Holding the paintbrush just like a pen or a pencil at the bottom of the handle. We're going to go ahead and dip the tip of our bristles into the paint. Just the very tip. We don't need too much paint, just a very little bit here. We're going to touch the paper with the tip of our bristles and lightly glide our hand across the paper to create these thin lines. Every time we make a new line, we're going to get just a little bit more paint. Very tip of your bristles. Touch the paper with the tip of your bristles and lightly glide your hand across the paper. If you feel like your lines are too thick, maybe lift your hand up just a little, but we're gently touching the paper with our bristles. So if you want to go ahead and practice yourself now, make sure you're holding the paintbrush at the bottom of the handle here. Dip just the tip of your bristles in the paint, and then lightly glide your hand across the paper. Every time we make a new line, we're going to get just a little bit more paint. Let's go ahead and practice making these lines. You want your lines a little bit thinner, maybe you want to lift your hand up just a little bit and lightly touch the paper. You can also use less paint by not pressing too hard into the paint, by lightly dipping your paintbrush. And you can lift your hand up just a little bit as well. Remember to try your best and have fun. We're learning something new today. So just have fun. Let's practice making a couple more lines. Remember, we're holding it just like a pen or a pencil at the bottom of the handle, lightly touching the paper with just the tip of your bristles and gliding across the paper. Remember, only need just a little bit of paint. Okay, let's go ahead and make one more line, and then we're going to practice making the leaves. So for the leaves, we're going to hold the paintbrush right in the middle of the handles, right where that grip is, right in the middle of the handle. So if you're using a different paintbrush, you can also hold it in the middle of the handle as well. So we're holding it where that grip is. Make sure to watch me first. For the leaves, we're going to dip just the tip of our bristles into the paint. But this time, we're going to wipe off any extra paint we have onto the container. So we're going to wipe off any extra paint right on the edge of the container. I like to twist my handle between my fingers. So I wipe off any extra paint and make sure my paintbrush comes to that nice point. We're going to touch the paper with just the tip of the bristles. Press down, flick, press down, flick, press down, flick. And you're brushing the brush or flicking it across the paper towards yourself. So go ahead and practice with me now. We're holding the paintbrush right where that grip is, in the middle of the handle. Touch just the tip of your bristles in the paint. Wipe off any extra paint you have on the edge of the container. Make sure you twist it between your fingers so you wipe off all the extra paint on all sides of the bristles. Make sure it comes to that nice point. Touch the paper with just the tip of your bristles. Press down, flick, press down, flick, press down, flick. I like to make about 3 leaves before I add a little bit more paint. So they kind of look like chicken feet, or I've had a student say they also look like dinosaur tracks. Make sure you're holding it right in the middle of the handle where the grip is, wiping off any extra paint that you might have. Make sure it comes to a nice point. Touch the paper with the tip of your bristles, press down, flick, press down, flick, press down, and flick. Let's do that a few more times. Remember, I like to get more paint after I've painted about 3 leaves. Just a little bit more paint. All right, and I'll make one more set, and then I think we're ready to make our paintings. Remember, we're only using the scrap paper right now, so we can practice the Asian brushstroke technique. So I'll show you my practice sheet a little bit closer so you can see the lines and also the leaves. Remember, we don't want to press down too hard for the lines, and for the leaves, that's the only time we're pressing down. Think we're ready for our painting. So go ahead and take those practice sheets and put them over to the side so we can make our painting. So grab that big white sheet of construction paper. We're going to be using our paint. Remember, we're going to use the water at the very end of the lesson. So no water until the end of the lesson. Okay, grab our paint and our paintbrush. Make sure that you leave some space for the other stalk because we're making 2 bamboo stalks. We're going to start with these rectangles for each shoot in the stalk. Remember to leave some space so we show each part of the bamboo. We're also going to paint the branches next. You want to also leave some space in between each part of the branch. And then we're going to end with the leaves. And lastly, we'll paint inside the shoot. So let's go ahead and get started by painting our first bamboo shoot. So make sure you're watching me first, and I'll let you know when to start painting your own. So we're going to start with holding our handle the first way and the first technique at the very bottom of the handle. So hold your paintbrush like a pen or a pencil, the very bottom of the handle, just before you touch the bristles. You're going to touch the tip of your bristles into the paint, so don't press down too hard. We're not going to wipe off any extra paint this time. We only do that for the leaves. Make sure to watch me first. We're going to touch the paper with just the tip of our bristles, and we're going to make these rectangles going all the way up the paper. Every time we make a new line, we're going to get just a little bit more paint. Make sure you're not pressing down too hard. If you think your lines are too thick, you can go ahead and grab a little less paint next time. And then I'll let you know when to go ahead and get started. Your bamboo can be bigger or smaller than mine. I'm going to make mine a little larger just so you can easily see what I'm doing. Remember, every time you make a new line, you're going to get just a little bit more paint. Make sure you're leaving that space in between each shoot of the bamboo. You want to make sure you're leaving some space to paint the other one as well. So go ahead and continue making these rectangles going all the way up the paper. Make sure that you're holding the handle right at the bottom, right before you touch the bristles. Get just a little bit of paint at the very bottom of the bristles, just on the tip, and lightly touch the paper with the bristles. We don't want to press down too hard. And every time we make a new line, grab a little bit more paint. Make sure you're leaving some space in between each part of the bamboo or each shoot. We're going to go all the way up the paper. You can make yours bigger or smaller than mine, and you can also make more or less shoots if you'd like. Remember, we're making 2 bamboo stalks. We're going to go all the way up the paper. Make sure to try your best and have fun. Remember, there's no such thing as mistakes, only happy accidents. So just try your best. And don't worry about your picture looking like mine or anyone else's. We're going to go all the way up. If you want to make one of yours a little bit shorter, that's okay too. We're going to leave that space in between each shoot. Every time you make a new line, we're going to get just a little bit more paint. Next, we're going to paint the branches. So make sure you're holding your paintbrush right at the bottom of the handle, just like a pen or a pencil, and just before you touch the bristles. We only need just a little bit of paint at the tip of our bristles. Go ahead and watch me first. We're going to make some branches, and make sure the branches start from in between each shoot. And every time we make a new line, we're going to grab just a little bit more paint, not too much, just a little bit. We're going to make sure to leave some space in between each branch. And every time you make a new line, get just a little bit more paint. Make sure you're not pressing down too hard. We're just lightly touching the paper with our bristles. You can go ahead and you can start now. Just make sure you're holding it right at the bottom of the handle and get just a little bit more paint on the tip of your bristles. And make as many branches as you'd like. Make sure you get a little bit more paint every time you make a new line. Leave some space in between each part of the bamboo branch. You can make as many branches as you'd like. Okay. All right. So next we are going to paint our leaves. And the leaves are going to start at the end of each branch. So make sure you are holding your paintbrush now right where that grip is, or the middle of your handle. And then you're going to dip just the tip of your bristles into the paint. This time we're going to wipe off any extra paint you have onto the container. Remember, I like to twist my handle in between my fingers, making sure I wipe off any extra paint off of all the sides of the bristles. Make sure it comes to that nice point. Go ahead and watch me first. I'm going to find one of the ends of my branches, touch the paper with the tip of my bristles, press down, flick, press down, flick, press down, flick. And I like to make about 3 leaves before I get a little bit more paint. So go ahead and start making your leaves now. Holding the brush right in the middle of the handle where that grip is. Touch just the very tip of your bristles into the paint. Wipe off any extra paint on the edge of the container. I like to twist the handle between my fingers. I wipe off any extra paint there might be. Make sure it comes to that nice point. Find one of the ends of the branches. Touch the paper with the tip of your paintbrush, holding your paintbrush straight up and down. Press down, flick, press down, flick, press down, flick. And make as many leaves as you'd like. Remember, I make about 3 leaves before I get a little bit more paint. Make sure you're holding it right in the middle of that handle where the grip is. We're only getting a little bit of paint on the tip of our bristles, wiping off any extra paint. Touching the paper with the tip of the bristles, press down, flick, press down, flick, press down, flick. Okay. All right, so we have one more step. We're going to paint the inside of the bamboo. So we're going to take our paint and put it over to the side. We're going to grab just a little bit of water now. So I'd like to put a little bit of water in the cap, in my lid here. It's just a few drops. We don't need too much water. I'm going to put just a little bit of water in that little circle part there. Just a little bit. We don't need too much. So I put a little bit of water in the lid. If you're using a cup, all you need is a few drops of water. We're still holding the paintbrush right where that grip is, or the middle of the handle. And make sure to watch me first, and I'll let you know when to follow along. So we're going to touch our paintbrush into the paint or into the water. We're not going to use paint anymore because we still have paint on our bristles. We're going to paint about half of each shoot of the bamboo. So this is just to give it some shading or like a shadow. And we're gonna go ahead and every time you paint a new shoot, dip your bristles into the water once again. And I like to twist the handle between my fingers so I make sure I get water around the bristles. And then painting about a triangle inside each shoot. Right. Go ahead and paint the inside of your bamboo kind of like watercoloring by just using water because we already have paint on our bristles. All right. So that is the end of our painting. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, learning the Asian brushstroke technique. And I'll see you all for our next lesson. Take care. Have a great day.